Good morning. This is Thursday morning. Glad to be with you today. I trust today is a great day for you. That's our prayer, and we want to be a blessing and perhaps be a part of your great day today. You know, something last night at church, I was talking to some of our men, and we were talking about our devotions. We do this through a means called Restream. And you have two possibilities when you do it on this platform. One is you can pre record, the other is you do it live, like I'm doing it right now. This is live. I'm actually sitting at my desk right now talking to you live. And then, but sometimes we can pre record, so it's going to start at the time normally we do. And when Francis and I took several days off last week or week before last, I pre recorded all of those while we were going to be gone. In fact, I told one of our people at church, they asked me if I ever did that, was I going to wear the same clothes every time? I said no. And so when I did that, I brought extra shirts, extra ties. I even had a pullover sweater that disguised the fact that it was all in one day. But anyway, my point was, after I got back, I was looking at the things, and one morning I was going to listen to the devotion and see, okay, did it come through? Okay, was it whatever? And it didn't come on at 8:30. So I went on to the restream and I looked at it, and I had by mistake set it to start at 1:30 in the afternoon instead of at 8:30 in the morning. And so last night at church we were talking about that. And I said, man, I can't believe I did that. I said, I don't know why I did that. And one of the men piped up and he said, I wondered. He said, because right in the middle of the day, the afternoon, all of a sudden I heard you come on, and I thought, well, that's not the right time. And another man said, well, preacher, don't worry about it. God knew there was some sinner that was going to need to hear that at 1:30 in the afternoon. And the first guy who said it came on said, are you saying I was the sinner that God wanted to hear that? Well, that wasn't exactly what was meant. And of course, they were all kidding. But it is interesting that sometimes when these things, we think we have everything covered. Man, we've got it all set. And then something happens, doesn't it? Well, that's life. How we respond to that is a great testament of our lives and our faith that we have. Today, we're going to be continuing talking about songs. Music has been a part of my life all my life. I remember the first quartet I sang in. I was in elementary school in the fifth grade, maybe fourth grade. My oldest brother, Bradley, had a high school quartet that he sang in, and they were very, very good. And the lady who was our elementary music teacher, she decided we needed one for the little boys. And so I sang in an elementary quartet in elementary school. In junior high school, I continued on. I played in band, played brass in band, and sang. In high school, same thing. In fact, my senior year of high school, I was in Birmingham at Trussville High School, and was able to compete in both band and in choral. And man, what wonderful opportunities I had to be able to do that. And it was great. And then went to college. My major was music. So when we talk about the songs and the Bible, man, I love it. I think it's really something. What we have been doing, though, is talking about special songs that were used at special times. For instance, yesterday we talked about the song of Deborah after God gave them the victory over Sisera and all of the armies of Syria, and what happened there and how God gave them a mighty victory. Before that, we talked about the song of Moses after God had delivered Israel from Egypt and then brought them through the Red Sea. But today we've got a different tone, if you will, a different theme of a song. When I was in college, one of the courses that I took was a course in orchestral conducting. I never was an orchestra conductor, but I had to take that particular course as a part of my major. And what we had to do for our final exam was to take a recording of an orchestra playing a classical piece. And you had to act like you were standing in front of the orchestra. For instance, every person in the orchestra, every instrument is in a certain location. And so what you had to do was act like you were bringing them in at the right time. So when the violins were going to come in, you had to bring the violins in. When brass was coming in, you had to bring them in. You had to bring in the flutes, bring in all the different instruments as you were leading. I'll never forget it because my number that I did was one called De Moldau, and it was written by a man by the name of Smetana. It is still one of my favorite classical pieces, only because I learned it so well. But there was a theme of that song. And as you listen to it, you can hear it. The river is flowing smoothly, and then it gets a little more fast, like it's going through the rapids, and then it calms out again. There's a theme. Well, today the theme is one kind of a tragedy, a little bit. We're going to be looking at the song of fools out of Ecclesiastes 7. Stay with us, if you will. I heard about a member of a church that went to his pastor, and he said, "Pastor, can I ask you a question?" The pastor said, "Sure." He said, "Do you think that it is proper for a person to profit from the mistakes of another?" And the pastor said, "Oh, no." He said, "Definitely not." And the man said, "Are you sure? You're sure of that? It's not proper for a person to profit from the mistake of somebody else." "No, it's just not right." He said, "We are not to profit because others made mistakes." And that's absolutely the way it is. The man looked at him. He said, "In that case, Pastor, would you mind returning the $50 I gave you for performing the wedding that my wife and I had last year?" Well, I don't think that was what the preacher had in mind. In Ecclesiastes chapter 7, the Bible tells us this: "A good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of one's birth. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for that is the end of all men, and the living will lay it to his heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by the sadness of the countenance the heart is made better. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for a man to hear the song of fools. For as the cackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. This also is vanity." Now, I want you to notice a little phrase, and I want to just mention this. Notice what he says. For as the cackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of a fool. You know what he's talking about? When you build a fire, you don't build a fire out of thorn bushes. You know why? It doesn't last long. You want firewood that's going to burn. It's fine to get those thorns and put a little bit of it together and let it start a fire. But you're not going to heat your house on a fire of thorns bushes. And he says, That's what the fool is like when he listens to that. He rejoices over a little thorn under a pot, but he's never going to cook anything under that. So is the last laughter of the fool. Some years ago, there was a billboard advertisement. It used to be very popular several years ago, and it was for a vodka company. I'm not going to name it, but on that billboard, they had all these smiling faces and people holding their vodka in their hands like this. And the catchy phrase that they used was this: it leaves you breathless. The meaning was that it left no odor on your breath. In other words, you could drink their vodka and nobody could smell the alcohol on you. Many have literally been left, though, without the breath of life because of alcohol. Advertisements for any kind of sinful activity never show the result, but only the pleasure of sin for that season. The fun of fools is the theme of their song, but it will end in the heaviness of heartache. The tragedy of many diseases was the result of following the Pied Piper of the world's pleasures. Too often, the young see the fun, but do not see the tragedy of following the path of worldly lust. They listen to the pleasant and alluring song of fools, but fail to read the words of the refrain. Too much of what is promoted today as being good is the crackling of thorns. It makes a lot of noise, but does not produce much heat. It is the song of fools that claims life without trouble and victory without battles. It is trouble and trials that strengthen the believer. Tribulation worketh patience, patience experience, experience hope, and hope maketh not ashamed. That's not just a phrase, but it is a principle in the Word of God. The wise are those that have gone the crucible of trials and found the Lord faithful in times of trouble. Faith is not increased in the land of ease, but in the wilderness of hardship. God allows us to hear the words of the wise and the song of fools. The pleasing sound of the fool's song is to be judged by the wisdom from above and not by the feelings of the flesh. Satan always has someone ready to sing the song of fools, but God has given his word to keep us on the path of blessing. In the Bible, a fool is primarily defined as someone who disregards God's wisdom and his word, often characterized by being self centered, quick tempered, reckless, and resistant to the knowledge or correction. Proverbs chapter 10 and verse 21 says, the lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for want of wisdom. And also, if you'll note Proverbs 14:9, fools make a mock at sin, but among the righteous there is favor. One writer, in going through the book of Proverbs and in other places as well, described 5 types of fools in the Bible. He described the first one as the naive fool. He's just oblivious to everything else. He doesn't pay attention. He's just naive. He'll believe anything. Then he said there's the stubborn fool. The stubborn fool is one who refuses to hear the truth. The sensual fool, that is one who goes after only what pleases self. It's what attracts to his senses. And then there is the scorning fool, the scorner. He makes a mock at things. He ridicules it. Then you have the steadfast fool, or some describe him as the mean fool. He is so set in his foolish ways and he attacks everyone else. So you may be naive, you may be stubborn, sensual, a scorner, or you may be steadfast, but every one of them are still a fool. Many times the Bible tells us that people have thought they were wise and they declared their own wisdom. But as the apostle wrote, but they measuring themselves by themselves and comparing themselves among themselves are not wise. That's the fool. It is the fool who declares liberty while he binds himself with new chains. Many a person has chosen the bondage of something else in trying to declare their own freedom. They have chosen to go after alcohol in a rebellious kind of way. I'll do what I want to do. Some have gone into drugs and become so addicted they couldn't even make right choices. Some have chosen to go after sex and pornography or some other sinful thing and become so addicted to whatever that was that they are in chains and a slave to the choices they made. They think they are free, but they are literally bound by the chains of that which controls them. As Paul put it in Acts 8:23, I perceive that thou art in the gall of bitterness and in the bond of iniquity. Many a young person in particular has declared their freedom from the rules of home, only to find themselves in a greater prison with a more ruthless master in the world. The fool will rejoice in their freedom while chained to a greater master. You see, the truth is, only the Lord can make us free. It is the fool who declares freedom, while in fact he is bound. Only the Lord can give wisdom to a fool, and only the Lord can give freedom. Jesus said that the Son can make us free. And he said, if the Son therefore shall make you free, ye shall be free indeed. The song of the fool may have a pleasing sound, but its end can be very painful. Many a person has made companions of fools, only to find that that companionship has led them down a path of destruction. How sad that people get caught up in the piping of the fool, only to find that the dance is the dance of death. We need to be those who turn to the wisdom of God and allow his wisdom to guide us. And may we not listen to the song of fools. God bless you for listening today. I trust you'll join with us in the morning right here, 8:30. God bless you today is my